Hey everyone, welcome to this productivity and time management masterclass. Now this is actually a take two because last night when I did this workshop live with all the people who participated, I didn't record it. I thought I was recording it, and then when I went back to grab the link to be able to share for the replay, it wasn't there. And you know what's interesting is that the old me, I know for a fact, would have been like, oh my God, what's happened? What's wrong? I would have gone into total panic spill. And I would have beat myself up when I realized what I did wrong, which was just untick a box that I was never meant to untick. And I would have absolutely beat myself up for that. But because I've been working on my project me for so many years, and I'm so much nicer to myself now, I just looked at where I went wrong and thought, okay, now I know I'll never do that again. And I just put on my OK Go sweatshirt again and just decided to start again. So I'm sharing that with you in hopes that it inspires you to realize that it doesn't do any good, all of this beating up that we do of ourselves, and that it's just wasted time. And part of what I'm going to be covering today is about mindset, because our minds play such a huge, important role in every part of our life, and absolutely including our productivity. So now I've got a slide deck to move over to. So I'm going to click over to share my screen and click on that, go over to my slide deck. Do that so I don't get distracted. Now I've created my slide deck in Canva, and you may have noticed that in the productivity section of Project We, I've actually got a training video for Canva and all the amazing things you can do with it. And I didn't even mention that you can do a slideshow with it. So without further ado, there we go. So, you know, over the past few years, I've had the pleasure of working with women from all over the world in my one-on-one master your to-do list sessions. And the one thing I've learned is that it doesn't matter whether they have a large family or a really heavy job. It doesn't matter if they have no kids or a really small family and they're not working. They all feel just as frazzled as each other. They feel like they never have enough time. They question whether they're doing things right. They feel overwhelmed and super frustrated. The low scores on their productivity area on their Project Me Life Wheel are not directly related to anything that you would think, like size of family or whether they work or not, or even how many items they have on their to-do list. But I've been able to help all of them. They just needed a good strategy to follow and a strategy to implement, to get them into a better position. So there are two distinct parts to today's workshop. And the first part, what we're in right now, is mindset, flow, and ease. And we're going to look at the vital role that all of this plays in our ability to feel and be our productive best. And then in the second part, I'm going to share the system I use for my own time management. I'm going to share the strategies that really work for me and for many of the women I've worked with over the years. And then the combination of the mindset stuff from part one and the systems from part two, and you're going to have this magic mix. Now, I am guessing that every one of you have your days when you're feeling switched on, you're in flow, you're feeling confident of your decisions, you're highly productive, and I'm also going to guess that you got your days when you feel like the opposite is true. You feel foggy, unfocused, unsure, frustrated for feeling that way. I know because I have days like this too. But there are ways to ensure that I feel more consistently in flow, and what helps the most is a conscious commitment to my personal growth. You know, I never realized before how connected these two areas are. And now that I see it, I take time each day to stay connected to myself on a deeper level that goes beyond my to-do list and my obligations. I take time to know myself. I listen to what my heart and soul need to feel happy and fulfilled. I get into alignment before I take action, which means I get my head into a good place before I dive into my day. I do this by meditating, and sometimes I'll add in some journaling. I'll set my intentions for how I want my day to feel and be. And I forgive myself for days when I'm simply not in flow or when things don't go the way that I wanted them to. We are way too prone to beating ourselves up all this time. Just like I talked about in the introduction, we're so hard on ourselves. And this is why focusing on your personal growth is such a vital part of all of this. Those of you who've been filling in the Project Me weekly check-in sheet or who do consistent journaling will have shifted into a more objective observation of your life and your mindset. The more you get to know and understand yourself, the better of a friend you become to yourself. And that mean inner critic calms down and she's so much nicer. Those of you who've been reading The Magic, which was our inspirational book of the month, will more easily look for the good and feel appreciation in those everyday moments. If you've not read this one, or done the daily exercises, it's a good one for cultivating more gratitude. And this just mixes into your entire life. So this positive mindset stuff, it's an ongoing process. This is not an overnight transformation. There's no quick fix for this. It's like a muscle that needs to be constantly exercised to make it stronger. But that's what I'm doing for you guys. I'm giving you tools and strategies to give you the way to get onto this stuff without it seeming super daunting. Despite what you've been conditioned to think, life is not meant to feel hard. We've created these overcomplicated lives for ourselves, which are filled with so many constant choices and decisions that we're bogged down by the sheer volume of it. Compare your life to that of your great-grandmother. She had to hand wash clothes and hand wash dishes. She would have dreamed of machines that did this for her. When she wanted to communicate with a faraway relative or friend, she couldn't just fire off an email or put a post on her Facebook wall. She had to sit down with a pen and paper and handwrite a letter and write out the envelope and then fix a stamp and take it to be posted. But for every invention that's come along to save us time, we've added on at least 20 more things to do instead, right? We're no less busy than our grandmas and probably a lot more frazzled, and we beat ourselves up a lot more. What advice do you think your dear great-grandma would lovingly say to you if she could? This is a great journaling prompt, actually. A letter from your great-grandma. One of the things she'd probably say to you is that you're too busy with things she can't even fathom why you'd want to be busy with. She'd tell you to slow down and to keep it simple. We need to pare down to what's really necessary and shed what's not so we can be more present in the moment. We definitely need to drop perfection and know that good enough truly is good enough. This is so damn liberating for me as a former perfectionist, I can't even tell you. When your days are filled with non-stop obligations of things you feel you should do, you're not in flow. Yes, there are things that need to get done. That's why in part 2 of this workshop, we'll focus on how to get done what really needs doing more efficiently. But you have to know that things are not going to truly change for you unless you also do the inner work. When you're letting your mind run the show, you are not in flow. When you're not living true to your values, you're not in flow. When you're doing things just because you think you should, you are not in flow. And believe me, when you're in autopilot and you're just going through the motions, that is not flow, and it won't bring you the fulfillment you crave and you deserve. Self-doubt and decision paralysis is crippling. Our great-grandmothers did not have to make so many decisions every day. They didn't have so many choices every day. And we don't have to either. We just think we do because there are so many options placed before us. Just as she had to prepare meals for her family, so do we. But she didn't have 28 recipe books and 62 recipes clipped from websites or magazines with exotic lists of ingredients she had to source and shop for. She had so much more domestically to do than we could ever wrap our heads around. And yet, With all of our modern conveniences to save us hours each day, we just fill it with other things that keep us just as busy as she was, only she just got on with it without questioning herself or overanalyzing it all and feeling guilty about it not being good enough. It's time for you to learn to trust yourself. You will forever be a slave to your to-do list if you don't tap into your inner wisdom. The one who makes quick and confident decisions, the one who sifts and sorts easily what needs doing and what can wait or be dropped, the one who trusts herself to make good choices. I asked in our private Project We Facebook group what your biggest struggles are in this productivity area of your life. And there was a theme with so many saying that they spend too much time researching options for everything. So much of this endless research and feeling like you've got to get a consensus from others before you can move forward with the plan, it's down to a lack of trust in yourself. You will only trust yourself when you begin to be bolder and make decisions without fear of making a bad one or a wrong one or upsetting other people or somebody else second guessing you. You've got to begin to notice when you're taking way too long to make decisions or you're weighing up far too many options. Now, coming up, I've got some wonderful magic potions. They're going to help with swift decision making if you can relate to any of this. Find your flow. When you find your flow, life feels so much smoother. As the name suggests, you move from one thing to the next with a sense of ease and flow. Begin to understand what flow feels like to you. For me, flow feels easy. Flow feels light and peaceful. Flow can sometimes for me feel really empowered, like passionate, enthusiastic, creative. If I'm really stuck into a creative project, I lose all sense of time and I feel super present and connected. So just begin to notice more in your life when you're feeling in flow, like honor it and say, oh gosh, when you come out of it and you have to transition out, go, wow, I was really in flow just now. Maybe it's when you're with a friend and you're just having a really great conversation, or you're just doing something, you're working out at the gym, doing something where you're not, worrying about the future or thinking about the past. When I'm in this state of flow, I realize, this is how life's meant to feel. And I'm feeling it so much more now than ever. And I want to help you experience this flow too. You are going to love it. Your emotions are always your best indicator to let you know whether you're in flow or not. And this is the flow chart of emotions that hangs above my desk, and I refer to it several times a day. I ask myself, how am I feeling right now? And if the answer is a bit frustrated or discouraged, impatient or overwhelmed, this is my clear indication that I am not in flow, and that in fact I'm giving off a negative vibration, which is only going to make things worse. In that moment, I have a choice. Carry on with what I'm doing and how I'm feeling, or reach for a better feeling thought. I look over to the left side. I think, okay, gratitude. What am I feeling grateful for right now? I look around me. There's always something to be grateful. Or I move into positive expectation if I'm worrying about something. I just shift into how I want things to turn out. Or if it's a sign, maybe I notice how I'm feeling and it's just simply a sign that I need to get some fresh air, or I need to pet my cats, or take some kind of a break and regroup. This worksheet is something that I share openly with you guys in Project We. I'll post a link to it again here, there, and everywhere so I can make sure that you find it. And I really encourage you to print out a copy for yourself and refer to it as often as you can throughout the day, because the more you get in touch with how you're feeling, it is your indicator of whether you're in flow or not. When you aren't in touch with your emotions, you've lost touch with you. And when you lose touch with you, you're just in autopilot. You're not living life as you're designed to be living it. And this is why you feel so inconsistent, why you have so many stuck and frustrated days. And this is why you can end up in downward spirals. And when you're in a downward spiral, you are a vibrational match to more downward spiral experiences and people. You're attracting that to you. So you need to make getting into a positive upward spiral your main focus every day. If you do that, every single thing that needs doing in your life will get done with a lot more ease. Trust me, this is something I've been doing, over the past year, and it is a huge shift for me. It's amazing. I want you to note, though, that the feelings on the right side are not bad feelings. All emotions are there to guide us. We're human, and it's our human experience. It's our gift to be able to experience this range of emotions. And they're there to guide us and be our indicator of what's going on inside of us. We can then listen to what they're trying to tell us rather than simply pushing them aside or getting upset at ourselves for feeling the emotions we're feeling and just plowing on with life. Listen to what your emotions are trying to tell you. And that's where all this checking in stuff I talked about comes in. So rest, recovery, and reflection are essential for good productivity. If you're the kind of person who goes nonstop from the moment you get out of bed until you collapse at the end of the day, please know that as much as you might think you're being super productive, it's probably an illusion, and it will catch up with you, either in your health or in your relationships or both. Put your feet up, write in your journal, fill in a Project Me action sheet and reflect on it. Listen to an insight timer meditation. This is that app I talk about all the time, the free meditation app, Insight Timer. Type in productivity into the search bar of that app, and you will find wonderful ones that are designed to help you get into flow. Really, you just put in productivity and you press play. There's 2-minute ones, there's 3 minutes, there's 5 minutes, and you just take a little break, press play on that, and you won't believe how well that works for getting you out of whatever mindset you're in and just shifting into a more positive one. Get to bed early. You'll be far more productive the next day when you've had enough sleep. It's a total game changer. If you're burning the candle at both ends and thinking that somehow that's making you more productive, that's not going to work long term. It can feel counterproductive, I know, sometimes when you've really got a lot to do, to stop, breathe, meditate, or reflect, when you've just got to get on with things. But I promise that when you get into alignment before taking action, or you take these little mindful breaks, you are guided along with a lot less effort and striving. This is what I mean by getting into flow. You move through your day with more ease and less beating yourself up, and a lot more gentleness and kindness. Okay, here are some practical applications for how to implement part 1 of this workshop. Okay, you've got your check-ins. You have to know how vitally important your self-check-ins are. You'll only become the expert of you by paying close attention to what's working and what's not. And then you do more of what works and less of what doesn't, and progress is made so quickly. Become your own best friend, the one who'll give you a pep talk when you notice you're out of flow, the one who'll let you off the hook when it's not perfect or you mess up like I talked about earlier, the one that speaks kindly to you and encourages you, the one that notices when you get it right. That is why I love this weekly check-in sheet, because it gets you to realize, what's gone well, what's not working. And of course, if you're active over in the Project We Power Posse group, that's an extra tool for you, because every weekend I put the post called Weekend Wins. And that's a chance for you to think about what's gone well over the past week and type it in that box and, share it. Feel good about it. Celebrate it. We're all on this journey together. So keep sharing those wins, but also share when you're stuck. This is where Project Me turns into Project We. It's what you signed up for. This doesn't have to take long. I've designed everything to fit in around your busy life. I promise you. I know some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I just don't have time for this. But I'm telling you that I'm making things like this is the bare minimum. I've given you bare minimum stuff, which is your Project Me Life Will Check-in, at the beginning of each month. Schedule in time each day for yourself. If that feels like too much right now, then do it once a week. And if you think that's impossible, then at the very least, you got to have that hot date with you once a month. Really, I know you can do this, and you know you can too. You just have to make it a priority. The next tool I've got up my sleeve is Bach flower remedies. These have been in my toolbox for over 20 years, and they're so a part of my life and my family life right now that sometimes I forget to even tell you guys about them. They're just so integrated in our lives. You can buy these natural flower essences at health food shops, pharmacies. Here in the UK, you get them at Boots. Amazon delivers them. You can get them in every country all over the world. The most famous one is this one in the picture here. Sorry, my box is a bit beat up. I don't know why I didn't just take it out of the box and show you the plain bottle, but it's in a spray bottle. It's the famous one in the yellow bottle. It's called Rescue Remedy. And every woman should have this in their handbag at all times. They don't call it yoga in a bottle for nothing. Now, I studied at the Bach Institute in London years ago when my kids were really small because I was amazed at how well they worked for me and my kids, and I wanted to understand it more and take it deeper. There are 38 different remedies to deal with life's emotional ups and downs, and I've chosen 5 specific ones, just picked out these 5 to help you today with your productivity. So I'm going to start on the left with elm. Elm is for overwhelm. Easy to remember because overwhelm has elm in the word. I get through bottles of this because I'm actually the kind of person who's prone to overwhelm. I know firsthand that when overwhelm has taken hold of me, I can't think straight. Logic goes out the window. I either become frantic or I become paralyzed and I can't do anything. I now know the early signs of overwhelm and how important it is that I nip it in the bud before it takes over. So know what your first signs of overwhelm are. Where in your body do you feel it? I feel it as a tightness in my chest. You may feel it in your stomach or maybe in your head. What typical thoughts come into your head? How do you feel it emotionally? So that you can recognize the triggers of overwhelm before it takes over. For me, I lose clarity. I can't think clearly. I begin to flip from one thing to another in a kind of frantic way. Or another sign for me is that I'm really snappy and irritable and short-fused. That's a sure sign that something's up with me. Used to be my natural way of being. I just thought that that's the kind of person I was. And now that I'm not that way anymore, I realize that it's like the first onsets of kind of overwhelm. So as soon as I recognize those first symptoms of overwhelm, I grab my bottle of elm, which I keep right here on my desk, and I put a couple of drops directly on my tongue, and I put some in my water bottle, and my mind shifts into clarity. It's magic stuff. Okay, the next one along is hornbeam, and that's for that Monday morning feeling, even when it's Wednesday or Thursday. It's great for procrastination and getting yourself moving when you just don't feel like it. I give it to my kids even when they don't want to go to school for no other reason than the blah. So it's not like, an emotional problem that has to do with school, but they're just kind of like, you're going to see them at breakfast kind of like, and it often is on a Monday morning. And I'll put a little bit of hornbeam in their juice and it perks them up. Serato is next up. That is for that lack of trust in yourself that I talked about earlier. Doing endless research, asking the opinion of others, not making a move because you're just not sure and you want to ask other people what you should do. Serato helps you to become more clear, confident, and decisive. Scaranthus is another for indecision. Unlike Serato, where one seeks the advice of others, this is for when you're keeping your worries and concerns to yourself, you're mulling things over incessantly in your mind. Even after a decision is made, doubt remains, and you end up confused, and your mind is in a spin. Scaranthus is for developing a confident, decisive mind. Try that if you're one of the people in the group who said that you do this kind of thing. Try this, really. And gentian. Gentian is for those who are easily discouraged, or they give up when there's been a setback. They become discouraged and they just stop trying. They think, what's the point? Their energy is quickly depleted at the thought of doing something that they don't want to do, and so they put it off, which only makes them feel worse. So Gentian encourages commitment and perseverance and gets rid of self-doubt. I just gave some of this to my son a couple of days ago, and it really works. Just want to show you quickly that this is my absolute Bible for looking up the 38 different flower remedies. I've read much more advanced books, and I've actually culled them all. I've just decided to keep this one because this is my Bible. This is the one that's so easy for looking up emotional struggles for me and anyone in my family, and I can just find the right remedy really quickly. The remedies, by the way, can be taken as drops directly on the tongue, or you can put a few drops in water and sip throughout the day. The funny thing now is that now that I'm learning about energy and vibration and I'm getting all that, I remember that back at the Bach Institute, oh my gosh, so many years ago when I was studying these, I didn't actually understand what they meant when they said that when you're putting this into water, for example, that you're not diluting it, that it's like the vibrational energy that's going into the water. And I just couldn't figure out how it didn't make any difference if I was putting it directly on my tongue or if I was putting it into a big bottle of water or just a glass of water. I thought, surely you've got to use more if you're putting it into a big bottle of water than if you're putting it, in a small glass. And they kept saying it's not about the quantity and it doesn't get diluted. And now I finally understand that. If anyone wants to ever start a post in our group about Bach flower remedies, I'm always so happy to dive into this topic. I'm happy to do a whole workshop on it if you want. This works for pets, babies, toddlers. This is how I know it's not the placebo effect. Some people say, oh, maybe it's just, psychosomatic, but I know that it's not because I've fixed real issues with my cat. And, like I said, with toddlers and people, they didn't even know they had it in their little water beaker, and it completely and utterly stopped my little one from being clingy and not leaving my side at birthday parties. Okay, I'm going to stop on the Bach flower remedies now. So that was the end of part 1. Begin to pay much more attention to your personal growth, and I guarantee it will have a positive knock-on effect on your productivity. Okay, on to part 2. Mastering your to-do list. When I work with women to help them to learn my time management system, the very first thing they need to do before we even jump on a call together is they need to have a giant brain dump of everything that they have spread across Post-it notes, notebooks, backs of envelopes, and that dreaded notes app on their phone. I get them to gather it all up in one place, and I also ask them, what's keeping you up at night? What's making you feel guilty because you never get around to doing it? What do you need to get done for you, your family, work? This week, next week, long term. They have this gigantic brain dump. What about any goals or projects that need lift off? Add those in too. And so they have the brain dump, and then that becomes the master to-do list. It needs to all be in one place so you know where it all is and you can access it easily to prioritize what order to do things. So if you've got it spread across multiple places, how can you ever really see what's important in the grand scheme of things? You just end up doing whatever's in front of your face each day without seeing the bigger picture of it all. Now, I used to try to do this master to-do list using a dedicated notebook with different pages for things like home projects, work projects, errands, holiday planning, but it would become a mess quickly with things crossed out and notes written in the margins. It just wasn't working. And then I discovered Trello. I am not going to go into the merits of Trello and how I use it to organize my entire life because you have my Trello training video in the Project We Members Hub to show you exactly how I do it. If you've not watched this yet, make it a priority. You may decide to go with a different app or a different system, but if you have no other system and you want to see what mine's all about or what you're doing isn't quite working for you, then check this out. My biggest piece of advice to all of you who are watching right now is to never ever think, I'll remember that, I don't need to write that down. We keep way too much in our heads, and it's no wonder that leads to feeling frazzled and unfocused. The thing I love about using Trello as my master to-do list is that I also have the app on my phone, and I've trained myself to always pop things onto my Trello list as soon as I think of something. It stops me from acting on tasks that pop into my head because I have to put it into Trello. And once I'm in there, I'm reminded that in the bigger scheme of things, it can wait. It also stops me from holding on to too much in my head. I hold nothing there, which is so free and liberating and allows my mind to be present. So once you've had that giant brain dump and you've gotten everything out of your head where you can see it in one place, you have to practice this mantra: I can do anything, but not everything. You can only laugh when you have that master to-do list and you see all that stuff that's been on Post-it notes and your phone app and in the back of your head and all this stuff. When you've got it all there, you actually just have to laugh. You have to just think to yourself, you know, there's no way that I was ever going to get to the bottom of that to-do list and be finished. Your to-do list is, in fact, never ending. By having this brain dump, you're realizing that all of that, although it can feel like, oh my God, there's all this, it was all in there in your head, subconsciously weighing you down, whether you realize it or not. So it can be scary sometimes to have that gigantic brain dump because you're like, whoa, this is going to bring up so much stuff. But you know what everybody says afterwards, that they're afraid to do it, like they don't want to do it. And when they do it, they feel so much freer. So you're going to have to trust the process on this one and have that brain dump and realize that once you got it all out of your head, you're freeing up a lot of mental bandwidth. By now, now you're channeling your great-grandma. I want you to channel your great-grandma and listen to her advice. You need to eliminate the stuff that you don't really need to be doing. You've got a lot of wish, you've got a lot of things you'd really like to do ideally because you've heard someone else talk about it, or you've seen it on Pinterest, or you've seen someone do it on Instagram, or you just have a lot of shoulds in your mind about the stuff that you need to do. But, you know, listen to that advice that your grandma has given you and simplify wherever's possible. Drop the shoulds, cut corners, do things good enough rather than perfectly. With your to-do list all in one place, you're now going to be able to prioritize. What has a deadline to it that needs to be done before it becomes screamingly urgent? What can you break down into smaller steps so you can make traction on it? I'm not going to go into all of this because this is in my Trello training video. Designing your day. Okay, don't work off the master to-do list. This is super important. You've had that brain dump, but now it can't be that every day you refer to that and you try to figure out, you know, like, you can't just do that. You are referring to it, but again, my system is that you are moving things over to the column that's urgent and important. You're moving things over to another column. It's all like Post-it notes that you can just zap and switch and move around. It's really great. And the great thing is that you're not having to write things down and cross things off and rewrite things. It's just you type it in once and you've got it there. So you're going to use your Design My Day action sheet every day to make a game plan. Invest 3 to 5 minutes first thing each day, or some people like to do it the night before, and you're going to deliberately choose what your priorities are. Only work from this then throughout the day. Like, you close out the other master to-do list and you only refer to this throughout the day. And it keeps you from overwhelmed from seeing your entire master list because you've done this, you've decided what your priorities are. And Design My Weekend is another one. Weekends need to feel different from weekdays. I'm going to head out of this presentation now because I want to get back to you. Let me stop the share. Hello, back again. I just want to show you that I have turned Design My Day into a printed planner. And yeah, it's got Design My Day and Design My Weekend in it, so that for those of you who've been asking me for this for years, it just means that you can now just flip the pages. And the nice thing is that you can then use it more like, you can refer back to it. If you make notes and things, you can refer back to it. And I've designed it as a 90-day challenge so that you can do it for 90 days and really see if it makes a positive difference to your life. I really believe it will. The women that I've challenged to do this have really loved doing it. So let me think if there's anything else I want to tell you. I want to give you some key points. Check in with yourself. These are the key points that we've gone over today. Check in with yourself using the Project We weekly check-in, monthly check-ins, or journaling. Look at where you can simplify your life, drop perfection, let go of shoulds, and make more time for the things that nourish your soul. So important. Have that giant brain dump. Get everything out of your head and into one place. Watch my Trello training to go deeper into how to prioritize your task and break things down into step-by-step so that the projects actually get done. There's so much more in that video that you can learn from, even if you don't want to use Trello. Get things out of your head onto paper. Don't use any to-dos. Don't leave any to-dos in your head. That is like my biggest thing. Free up that mental bandwidth. You're going to be so much more present and connected when you do that. Design your day. Even if you normally use another planner, if it's not working for you, if you're feeling like there's a missing piece that's not working for you, then give the Design My Day planner a try for at least a week and see whether it works for you. It can work in conjunction. A lot of people have told me that they have taken it and they've adapted and they've made it their own, and that's brilliant. This is about becoming the expert of you and finding out what works for you. I'm sharing what works for me, and it does work for a lot of other people, but if you can tweak it, if you can find something that works better for you, oh my gosh, do that by all means. This is all about giving you inspiration and motivation to get moving on coming up with what's going to work for you. And maybe you'll give the batch flower remedies a try too. I'll love to hear how you get on if you do. If you don't have my book, there's a whole section on productivity and time management in here. I very deliberately today didn't want to just have it be a recap of what's in my book, because a lot of people have listened to the audio version of my book and read my book. And so I just decided really not to go too much into what I've already written in the book. So if you haven't listened or watched or read this book, I highly recommend it. And the personal growth section, if you haven't revisited that, if you've got the book, revisit that, because it's going to go deeper into what you can be doing to get yourself into a better mindset throughout. Okay, well, I am going to wrap it up. This is the good thing about doing this a second time for you, for those of you who are watching the replay, is that it went a lot quicker. You know, now you can just be getting on with all of this and taking action rather than you know, being involved in all the kind of other stuff that went on in the thing. So I'm going to post this up as soon as I can, and I want to open up the conversation in Project We. Let's talk about it. Let's keep this going. And thanks so much for watching the replay. See you soon.